I want you to picture a magazine for a second. But don't picture something glossy, like a Vogue or a Time magazine, sitting nicely on a coffee table.
No, not at all.
I want you to imagine something that looks like it was cut and pasted together by a bored teenager in a basement in, like, 1961.
An honestly bored teenager might be a bit generous. We're talking about paper quality that feels like it might just dissolve if you look at it too hard. The ink smudges on your fingers. The layout is this dense, chaotic black and white mess that just refuses to acknowledge that modern graphic design even exists.
Exactly. And on top of that, this publication refuses to put most of its content online. It basically ignores the internet. So by all the laws of modern media, this thing should have gone bankrupt 20 years ago.
It sounds like a business model just designed for immediate failure.
You would think. But this is Private Eye, and it's Britain's best-selling current affairs news magazine.
Which is just wild.
In 2016, while print media was collapsing everywhere else, these guys hit their highest ever circulation. So for this deep dive, we're crossing the Atlantic to figure out how a magazine that looks like a cheap comic book became the most feared publication in the UK.
And feared really is the right word here. And that brings us to the core paradox of Private Eye. It's a very strange beast.
It really is.
If you open it up, on one page you have, juvenile cartoons, spoof letters, and jokes about politicians being naked. But then you turn the page and you find heavyweight, forensic investigative journalism.
Exposing government corruption that the serious broadsheets are too scared to touch.
Exactly.
It's like finding the Watergate investigation sandwiched inside an issue of Mad Magazine.
That is actually the perfect analogy. It's highbrow and lowbrow at the same time. And to understand how it works, we have to look at its mission. Although the editors would probably mock us for using a corporate word like mission.
Oh, they absolutely would. They'd probably claim the mission is just to serve Lord Gnome.
Yes, Lord Gnome. We have to introduce him. He's the fictional proprietor of the magazine.
Right.
He's this tyrannical, greedy, media baron figure that the writers pretend runs the whole show.
So it's a satire of the old press barons, right? The Hearsts and the Beaverbrooks of the world.
Exactly. Every time the magazine raises its price, they publish a statement from Lord Gnome saying he needs the money to buy a new yacht or, pay off a mistress.
Uh-huh.
It sets the tone immediately.
Yeah.
Nothing here is sacred, not even the magazine itself. But beneath that joke, the real goal is holding power to account, often by saying things that are legally very, very dangerous to say.
Before we get into the lawsuits, and oh boy, do we have some legendary lawsuits to cover, I want to stay on the visual side of this for a moment.
Okay.
Because I've got a scan of a recent issue here, and it really does look amateurish. That has to be a choice, right? They have computers now. They could make it look slick.
It is absolutely a deliberate aesthetic choice.
Mm-hmm.
When they started in the early 60s, they used a printing process called photolitho offset.
Mm-hmm.
It was cheap.
So practical.
Right. They literally typed the text on 3 IBM electric typewriters, cut the paragraphs out with scissors, and pasted them onto a board.
So it looked gritty because it was gritty.
Exactly. But as technology advanced, they just refused to update the look. There's what you could call a deeply conservative resistance to change baked into the culture. But psychologically, it's brilliant.
How so?
Well, think about what a glossy magazine signals. It signals advertisers. It signals PR. It signals corporate.
Yeah.
By looking like a messy, crowded newsletter, Private Eye signals urgency. It looks like a samizdat, like an underground resistance pamphlet.
That makes sense. It feels like you're getting the raw information, not the polished press release.
Exactly. Glossy pages imply you're trying to sell a lifestyle. Smudgy newsprint implies you're trying to tell the truth.
So who are the people who decided to start this underground pamphlet? Because despite the anti-establishment vibe, they weren't exactly working-class heroes, were they?
Far from it. This is where the British class system gets really interesting. Private Eye traces its roots back to the mid-1950s at Shrewsbury School.
Which, for our non-British listeners, is a public school, meaning a very elite, very expensive private boarding school.
Very privileged. We're talking about Richard Ingrams, Willie Rushton, Christopher Booker, and Paul Foote. They started a school magazine called The Wallopian.
And what were they writing about?
They were just mocking the schoolmasters, the traditions, the whole school spirit. It was rebellious, sure, but it was the rebellion of the insider.
And they basically just took that same energy and moved it to London.
Pretty much. They launched Private Eye in 1961, funded by a friend named Andrew Osmond, and sold the first copies in pubs around London. But the rocket fuel came in 1962 when Peter Cook bought the magazine.
Peter Cook was a massive deal at the time, right?
He was the comedian of that generation.
Yeah.
When he came on board, it gave the magazine instant cultural cachet. It cemented the link between the British satire boom and this new kind of journalism.
So if we're talking key players, we have to talk about the man who's been steering the ship since 1986, Ian Hislop.
The current editor, yes.
Yeah.
And a man who holds a very specific, and I'd imagine painful, distinction.
What's that?
He is listed in the Guinness Book of Records as the most sued man in English legal history.
Which is the perfect transition to my favorite part of this deep dive, the secret language.
Oh, the code.
It's amazing. You can't just read Private Eye like a normal newspaper. You almost need a decoder ring. And my understanding is this didn't start as some inside joke. It started as a survival mechanism.
Precisely. We have to talk about English libel law for a second. In the U.S., the First Amendment provides a lot of protection. In the UK, the laws are notoriously plaintiff-friendly.
So the burden of proof is on the publisher.
Often, yes. You have to prove that what you said is 100% true. So if you say the minister was drunk at the gala and you can't prove it in court...
You lose huge amounts of money.
Exactly. So Private Eye invented a whole vocabulary to say things without technically saying them.
Okay, let's unpack the dictionary. If I'm reading the magazine and they describe a politician as tired and emotional, what are they actually telling me?
They are telling you the person was completely drunk.
No way.
Yes. Tired and emotional sounds sympathetic, like stress or jet lag. But every single reader knows it means they were falling over drunk.
It's brilliant. And then there's Ugandan discussions.
Yes. That is the house code for illicit sexual exploits.
Where on earth did that come from?
It originated from a scandal back in the 70s. There was an African diplomat who was caught at a party, shall we say, in a compromising position with someone who wasn't his wife.
Uh-oh.
When he was confronted, he claimed he was upstairs discussing Ugandan affairs.
That is incredible. So Private Eye just seized on it.
Immediately.
Yeah.
And think about the legal protection that offers. If a politician wants to sue the magazine for saying he was having Ugandan discussions, he has to stand up in court in front of a judge and the press and explain why that phrase is defamatory.
He has to admit, Your Honor, everyone knows Ugandan discussions means I was having an affair.
Exactly. It forces the plaintiff to connect the dots themselves. It's a trap.
They also use nicknames to just puncture egos. Some of them are just rude, but, some are genius.
They referred to the late Queen Elizabeth II as Brenda, and the current king, Charles III, is Brian.
Brian! It's so aggressively mundane.
That's the point. It just strips away all the majesty. It brings them down to earth. They call the Guardian newspaper the Graniad, spelled Grauniad, mocking the fact that the paper used to be famous for typos.
And Piers Morgan.
Piers Moron.
Subtle.
Very. And they call the terrifying libel law firm Carter Ruck. Well, they call him Carter Fuck.
Also subtle. But speaking of lawyers, there is one piece of legal correspondence in their history that I think is just the crown jewel.
Arkell v. Prestram.
Yes. Tell us about it.
This is legendary. It's taught in law schools, usually as an example of what not to do, but still.
So set the scene for us.
A plaintiff named Arkell had his lawyers write to Private Eye. It was a standard threat. They said the magazine had libeled Mr. Arkell, and the letter ended by asking essentially, what are your proposals for paying damages?
Which is lawyer speak for how much money you're going to give us to make this go away.
Right. And Private Eye wrote back. The letter said, we refer you to the reply given in the case of Arkell v. Prestram.
Which sounds very official, like they are citing a legal precedent.
Until you go and check what the reply was in that case. The reply in Arkell v. Prestram was simply, fuck off.
I cannot believe that's a real letter.
It is. And now, we refer you to the reply given in the case of Arkell v. Prestram is a standard British euphemism for a blunt dismissal.
It captures the spirit of the whole operation. But we have to pivot here. Because if Private Eye was just a bunch of posh boys inventing rude nicknames and swearing at lawyers, it wouldn't be the institution it is. It wouldn't be feared.
No, it wouldn't. The jokes are the sugar that helps the medicine go down. And the medicine is the front half of the magazine.
Right, the structure is important here.
It is. The back half is the parody and the cartoons.
Yeah.
But the front half is the mulch. It's dense, serious journalism. Take the column Rotten Boroughs, for example.
Rotten Boroughs sounds like something from the 1800s.
It refers to corrupt electoral districts. This column focuses entirely on local government. Now, that sounds incredibly boring. Town councils, planning permission, zoning laws.
It sounds like the opposite of a page-turner.
But that is where the real corruption happens. Because so many local newspapers have died out, nobody is watching these local councils. Private Eye is often the only outlet reporting on a mayor giving a construction contract to his brother-in-law, or a council selling off public libraries for pennies. Rotten Boroughs is arguably some of the most important public service journalism in the UK.
And then you have in the back.
This is the heavyweight section, historically associated with the great journalist Paul Foote. This is where you find the deep dives investigations into the Lockerbie bombing, the Paradise Papers, tax avoidance schemes, major miscarriages of justice.
So this isn't satire.
No, this is forensic, angry journalism.
It's a weird mix, though, because right next to an investigation about money laundering, you'll have a column called Nooks and Corners, which is just architectural criticism.
Yes. It was founded by the poet laureate John Betjeman. It attacks architectural vandalism. It hates modernism. It hates brutalism. It hates concrete. It fits that conservative aesthetic we talked about. They see ugly modern buildings as an assault on British heritage.
So you have architectural snobbery sitting right next to these deep investigations into government corruption. But doing this work, especially the investigative stuff, that comes with a literal price tag.
A massive one. The magazine sets aside roughly 25% of its annual turnover just to pay out libel, damages, and legal fees.
Wait, let's pause on that. 25% of their revenue goes to getting sued. That is a staggering cost of doing business.
It's the cost of free speech under British law. And they have had some titanic battles that nearly destroyed the magazine. We have to talk about James Goldsmith.
Golden Ball.
That was his nickname in the magazine. He was a billionaire financier. In 1976, he didn't just sue for money. He filed for criminal libel.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
It's an archaic law. It meant that the editor, Richard Ingrams, could have actually gone to prison. Goldsmith wasn't trying to win an argument. He was trying to annihilate the publication.
So how did they survive?
They did something revolutionary. They turned to their readers. They created the Golden Balls Fund. They asked the public to send in money to help pay the legal bills.
It was crowdfunding.
Before the internet, yes. And the amazing thing is, the readers did it. They felt like they were part of the club. They were co-conspirators.
And they had to do it again later, right? With Sonia Sutcliffe.
That was in 1989. Sonia Sutcliffe was the wife of the Yorkshire Ripper, Peter Sutcliffe, a notorious serial killer. Private Eye alleged that she was capitalizing on her husband's crimes to make money. She sued.
And she won.
She won big. The jury awarded her £600,000. It was a record amount at the time. It was absurdly high.
And this led to one of the most famous quotes in the magazine's history.
Yes. Ian Hislop walked out of the court, faced the cameras, and said, "If that's justice, then I'm a banana."
Which naturally led to the Banana Bowls Fund.
Exactly. The damages were later reduced on appeal, but again, the readers step up. But there's one case that I think defines their morality more than any other.
Which one is that?
The case of Gordon Anglesey.
This one is much darker, isn't it?
Much darker. Gordon Anglesey was a retired police inspector. In 1994, Private Eye published allegations that he had indecently assaulted boys. Anglesey sued for libel.
And he won.
He won. The court ruled that the magazine couldn't prove the allegations. They had to pay him damages and legal costs. It looked like a total defeat.
So the legal system said Private Eye had lied.
Yes. But Private Eye refused to apologize or retract the core accusation. They paid the money and they waited. 22 years later, in 2016, Anglesey was charged and convicted of those very offenses.
Wow.
The witnesses were finally vindicated.
So Private Eye was right all along. Did they ask for their money back?
No. And this is the key moment. Hislop released a statement saying they wouldn't ask for the money back because, as he put it, others have paid a far higher price, referring to the victims.
That is incredibly powerful. It recontextualizes the libel payments. It's not a penalty for lying, it's a truth tax. Sometimes you have to pay to tell the truth.
Exactly. But we have to be balanced here. We can't just paint them as saints. For a magazine that shreds everyone else for incompetence, they don't always get it right.
And when they get it wrong, it can be dangerous. We need to talk about the MMR vaccine.
This is the big stain on their record. In the early 2000s, Private Eye heavily supported Andrew Wakefield. He was the doctor who claimed there was a link between the MMR vaccine and autism.
Which we now know is completely fraudulent science.
Totally debunked. But at the time, Private Eye ran story after story defending him, framing him as a brave whistleblower fighting the medical establishment.
So they fell into their own trap.
They did. They assumed that because the establishment was attacking him, He must be right.
And that support likely contributed to real vaccine hesitancy in the UK.
Almost certainly. They eventually acknowledged in a very small column that Private Eye got it wrong, but it took a long time. It showed the danger of being professionally cynical. Sometimes the consensus is actually right.
There's also the criticism about who actually runs the place. We talked about those schoolboy routes, Shrewsbury, Oxford, Cambridge. That criticism hasn't gone away, has it?
No. Critics, particularly from the left, like the Socialist Worker or trade unions, argue that the magazine is still a publication of assiduous public schoolboys. They accuse it of punching down.
The argument being that they mock union leaders and working-class people with the same sneering tone they use for the king.
Exactly. It's equal opportunity offense. But if you're coming from a position of extreme privilege, it hits differently. And sometimes they misjudge the public mood entirely.
The Princess Diana cover.
The most famous example, take us back to 1997. Diana dies in the crash.
Yeah.
The UK is in a state of absolute hysterical grief.
I remember it well.
It was unlike anything I've ever seen. And Private Eye ran a cover with the headline, "Media to Blame." It showed the crowds wailing outside the palace with a bubble saying something like, "The papers are a disgrace," and another person saying, "Yes, I read it in the Daily Mail."
They were pointing out the hypocrisy. The public bought the tabloids that funded the paparazzi who chased her.
It was a perfectly valid, logical point, but it was too soon. The public hated it. W.H. Smith, the main newsagent chain in the UK, which the magazine calls W.H. Smug, pulled it from the shelves.
Wow.
It was a rare moment where their cynicism clashed with genuine national trauma.
But they haven't stopped taking those risks. Just recently, in 2023, they did a cover on the Israel-Gaza war,
Which is a third rail of politics right now. The cover criticized both Hamas for their atrocities and the Israeli government for their response. Predictably, they got called anti-Semitic by one side and terrorist apologists by the other.
which for them probably means they felt they got it right.
Ian Hislop would say exactly that. If everyone is angry, you're probably in the right spot.
So let's try to pull this all together. We have a magazine that looks like a relic from the 60s, acts like a naughty schoolboy, investigates like the FBI, and gets sued like a supervillain. What's the takeaway? Why does this thing still exist?
I think the insight is that Private Eye is a reverse mulch machine. It takes the trash, the gossip, the rude jokes, the cartoons, and uses the money from that to fund serious, expensive, dangerous journalism.
The humor subsidizes the truth.
It does. And it serves a function that standard newspapers can't, because it doesn't care about being respectable. It only cares about being true, or at least funny.
It's funny you say that about truth, because in 2016, a U.S. lecturer actually put the Private Eye website on a list of fake news sites.
Oh, the magazine loved that. They found it hilarious. The lecturer just didn't understand satire. He saw a letter from a made-up headmistress and thought, this isn't factually accurate.
But that does raise a provocative thought to leave you with. We live in an era of actual fake news. We have algorithms feeding us confirmation bias. We have deep fakes.
Right.
In a world like that, is a magazine like Private Eye, which deliberately blurs the line, putting a cartoon next to a corruption scandal, is that more dangerous? Or is it actually the most necessary thing we have? Maybe we need someone standing on the sidelines, completely independent, just laughing at the absurdity of it all.
I think we know where Lord Gnome stands on that one.
Indeed we do. Well, that's all we have time for on this deep dive. I'm feeling a bit tired and emotional myself.
Careful, or I'll refer you to the reply given in Arkell v. Prestram.
Message received. Thanks for listening, everyone.